Well, good morning and thank you for coming out today. I'm often proud when LA City is noted as a countrywide leader at something. For instance, LA will be the first city in the country and the world, by the way, to have an Office of Climate Emergency Mobilization. We also will soon be the first in the country to have our own biodiversity index in order to measure, protect, and enhance our unique wildlife and plants. And we're the only city in the country that has an apex predator like our Hollywood mountain lion P22 living within our city limits. But frankly, there's one area where LA continues to lead that always frankly horrifies me, and that's air pollution. The American Lung Association, who is represented with us today, came out with its annual State of the Air report, which ranked Los Angeles as the most ozone-polluted metropolitan area in the United States, the 5th most polluted by annual particulate pollution levels, and the 7th most polluted for unhealthy particle pollution days. LA County was just one of 12 LA County was one of just 12 counties to receive failing grades in all 3 pollution categories in 2019. Those failing grades result in over 250,000 children and over 1.1 million adults reportedly suffering from asthma. We are actively choking ourselves, our children, our friends, and our neighbors, sometimes to death, and we need to stop. Now, believe it or not, I was a long-distance runner in high school, growing up in Los Angeles, and I can still remember my lungs being too sensitive to practice during the day. So I would run after midnight when the sun's impact on our air pollution had decreased. The fact that government acted during the 1970s and was able to considerably improve our air pollution through smart regulation was actually part of what inspired me to become a politician. I witnessed firsthand what good government could accomplish, and I wanted to do the same. Now, as we continue to face ever-worsening traffic and the air pollution that accompanies it, we're also facing an existential climate crisis. The United Nations gave us 12 years last October to drastically reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. The UN, and that leaves us now with something like 11 years and 4 months, and not that much has changed, other than the fact that the lunatic in the White House has been working even harder to gut the Clean Air Act and California's clean emission standards, something which we in my office consider an inspiration for taking even more aggressive steps. And today certainly will not be the last. In order to combat this combination of health and climate destruction, one of my Council District 5 constituents, Robin Streichler, who we'll hear from next, approached me and said, hey, you know, New York has a long history of restricting parking idling. Why can't Los Angeles do the same thing? The idling of parked vehicles is financially wasteful, largely unnecessary, and easily solvable. We looked into it and agreed. Parking vehicle idling is, for the most part, simply a bad habit, legally a nuisance, and one that can be solved largely through a combination of education and enforcement. New York City has been regulating parked vehicle idling for several decades, and 7 states have banned it outright. The motion I'm introducing today to the City Council will ask the City Attorney and our Department of Transportation to explore the best practices of existing laws and bring them back in the form of a world-class ordinance, one which will not unnecessarily burden low-income communities who are already suffering the most from air pollution and from the increase in climate impacts. In this way, we help people save money on the ever-rising price of gasoline, we help improve public health, especially among our children, and we get moving on an important and effective avenue towards our zero-emission goals, goals that we must hit if humanity is going to have any chance of surviving the global climate emergency that's facing all of us. I'm happy to say that we already have support in our effort from our local state senator, Ben Allen, who wanted to be here with us today, but had to be in Sacramento, and I expect that we'll be hearing more from him in the relatively near future on this subject. Thank you for coming today, and now we'll hear from our own hardworking Council District 5 constituent, Robin Streichler.
Hi, I'm Robin Streichler, air quality advocate and a resident of Los Angeles for almost 30 years. And I brought this issue of parked vehicle idling to the attention of my representatives because I care about our community's health, the future of our children, and the environment. Los Angeles has some of the worst air pollution in the country, and we are not meeting our minimum healthy air quality standards. And parked idling in California contributes 3 million tons of CO2 into the atmosphere in California annually. Not only that, we now know from a recent study that air pollution is actually killing more people annually than smoking. A little over a year ago, in spite of all this bad air quality and the growing climate crisis fueled by carbon emissions, I noticed a growing trend of parked vehicle idling for lengthy amounts of time and wondered why, if most of us conscientiously turn off our lights when we leave a room, we wouldn't turn off our engines when we're not driving. This dangerous trend of parked idling is easy to see all around us. Just walking in my own neighborhood, I see people in their parked cars, vehicles, having lengthy phone conversations, and I return perhaps 45 minutes to an hour later, and they're still running their vehicle and talking on the phone. I see this happening at all hours of the day, on almost every block, and in every parking lot. I see rideshare vehicles like Uber and Lyft constantly running their engines while parked and waiting. And I've even seen numerous Amazon delivery people leave their vehicles running with no one inside as they go and deliver a package to someone's door. With the increase in curbside pickup and door-to-door delivery services of all kinds, this problem is only getting worse, in tandem with our worsening air quality. I don't understand why so many people in such a health and environmentally conscious city as Los Angeles didn't realize how much they were polluting by leaving their cars running while parked and how much expensive gas they are actually wasting. I learned that many were unaware that turning off the engine after 10 seconds of parked idling saves wear and tear on the vehicle, wastes less gas, and pollutes less than leaving the car running. People seem to be following an old, outdated rule for maybe 1970s vehicles that just don't apply to vehicles of today, which even warm up better when you're driving than when you're standing still. I've discovered that a lot of people don't realize that turning the engine off wastes less gas, not keeping it running. As an example of the benefits of turning off parked vehicles, UPS and the United States Postal Service have strong parked idling policies and benefit greatly from savings by lowering their carbon and toxic emissions footprint. Idling vehicles also contribute to the local buildup of emissions at school drop-off and pickup zones. And this is very, very important, especially to all you parents who care and love your children dearly. These emissions seriously endanger children's developing lungs and bodies, exposing them to toxins on a daily basis. It is unethical to send innocent children to school to better their future and at the same time not do everything we can to limit their exposure to toxic emissions that can ruin their current and future health. Truly, we all know that for a quality life, health is everything. So curtailing emissions in school zones is a moral priority. So I asked myself, why are the good people of Los Angeles and California not aware of these facts? I'm sure if they realized the dangerous effects of idling emissions, especially in sensitive areas like schools, I believe that most people would not want to knowingly pollute and harm children and the environment. So why do so many people needlessly continue the habit of running their parked engines for extended periods of time? Quite simply, parked idling has been off the radar in California. And while states, as the council person pointed out, 8 states already have strong all-vehicle parked idling laws, and cities like New York have had strong parked idling vehicle laws for decades. California has only regulated heavy-duty diesel trucks, which is a start. But with the dire air quality and climate crisis reports, not enough. And so I contacted my representatives about the problem and worked with them to consider a strategy based on the best current idling regulations in the country. I thank Councilmember Paul Koretz and his hardworking staff and all the speakers who have come out to support this motion today. I thank the council member for his foresight in leading us to a clean air future. And this win-win-win, it's 3 wins, win-win-win motion, which will help businesses and residents reap the rewards of gasoline savings, cleaner air, and reducing our carbon footprint, all by simply turning off our gasoline engines when parked. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Robin. Now we'd like to hear from Chris Chavez, Deputy Policy Director from the Coalition for Clean Air.
Thank you, sir. Good morning. My name is Chris Chavez, and I am the Deputy Policy Director for the Coalition for Clean Air. We are a nonprofit based in downtown LA and focus on California air quality. Without question, California and Los Angeles are climate and policy leaders throughout the globe, and also in our efforts to reduce emissions. Yet, emissions from the transportation sector threaten to undermine all that work. Transportation is the leading source of emissions, and the total amount of emissions from transportation is increasing. Each one of us can help in reducing those emissions. One of those strategies is not needlessly idling your car's engine. Shutting off your engine rather than idling may seem small, even minuscule, yet the cost savings and emission reductions add up. This is especially important around sensitive populations such as children. Just idling for 10 seconds uses more fuel and emits more greenhouse gas emissions than simply turning off your engine. If you're away from home, you wouldn't leave your air conditioner on full blast all day. It's wasteful, it's expensive, and it's polluting. So is needless idling. We applaud Councilmember Koretz and the others who've been working on this issue for being willing and able to tackle on idling. And we encourage Angelenos to go idle free. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Now we'd like to hear from Barbara Hensley, who's the chair of the Central Group of the Sierra Club Angeles chapter.
Thank you, Councilmember Koretz. I represent the Sierra Club, and I'm a volunteer, and I also am the leader for downtown LA for the Sierra Club. We are very proud to support this motion. Last year, there were 89 bad air days in Los Angeles. Today is the 3rd day this year of bad air. This motion is sorely needed. The Sierra Club supports clean air for all, and we applaud Councilmember Koretz and Robin for putting together this motion and getting it going. It's long overdue, and as you heard from the other speakers, it's a no-brainer. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. And lastly, we will hear from Kevin Patel from the Youth Climate Strike.
Thank you. Good morning, and thank you, Councilmember Paul Koretz. My name is Kevin Patel. I am here representing Youth Climate Strike LA as one of their organizers, as well as serving as a sustainability liaison of the Downtown Neighborhood Council. Councilmember Koretz's plan to launch the Clean Skies, Clear Lungs campaign with the introduction of legislation to ban parked vehicle idling in Los Angeles, and thereby reducing air pollution and protecting public health, as well as reducing the greenhouse gas emissions, is way overdue. It is no lie that air pollution poses a significant danger to the public health of all Angelenos. I know all too well of what the effects of air pollution can cause. I myself have been affected by it, being diagnosed with an irregular heartbeat, not knowing about it until the 6th grade. This shouldn't be a new normal for students like me, who didn't even know about a condition I hadn't had before, or even for my friends to find out they have asthma. We must all understand that it is the smallest things that can cause the largest problems. Leaving your car on while waiting for someone, or even leaving the car to pick up something, might seem like nothing, but it is. And it is affecting the lives of all my community members. Once we understand that, we can fix all the problems in the world. What Councilmember Koretz has proposed is nothing new, but it is something LA needs. If New York can pass strong regulations and enforcement into its city administrative code, then why can't LA? It is time that Los Angeles takes these key steps to making sure future Angelenos can breathe within the City of Angels. Thank you very much.
And now we'll be happy to answer any questions that anybody has. Do you know much about New York? Okay, I'll let you answer.
Hi, New York is extremely creative in its enforcement, and the most interesting thing about New York City is that this particular regulation is constantly being evolved. I think they started in the 80s, and they're evolving it to this day. And one thing they're doing is citizen enforcement of commercial vehicles, citizens are not enforcing each other, but in the same way that we can dial up and report smog coming out of a truck, and then that will get reported and get taken care of by, I guess, our air board. They'll notify that person with that license plate. In that same way, citizens can actually videotape commercial vehicles idling. Besides that, we can do creative things like parking attendants. They're the ones that are in the front line of seeing all the people idling, but they don't have any authority to do anything about it. So I don't know the specifics, but they can somehow report that. And people can be ticketed by law enforcement. But people are going to be educated, and that's the most important thing. So people will get warnings first. This isn't some kind of crackdown on the public. This is an education of the public. And just like the very important click it and ticket campaign. I got a ticket for not wearing, I was just hot and I didn't put on my seatbelt, and the police officer saw me driving without my seatbelt for a few minutes, and he gave me a ticket. So that's been extremely effective and saved a lot of lives by encouraging people to buckle their seatbelt. And this is going to be the same, extremely effective, and save a lot of lives by encouraging us not to run our vehicles when we are parked.
And to some degree, I think this will be self-enforcing also. I mean, the ban on smoking in restaurants years ago is probably the extreme example. Everyone said, what are you going to do? Are you going to hire the smoking police? It turned out it was completely self-enforcing. You see virtually no one smoking in restaurants illegally. And it's just because the word got out, it became the norm, and everyone stopped smoking in restaurants. I believe this will be to some degree the same. There are a lot of folks that will follow whatever law is passed because they don't want to break the law. So I think just passing this and educating people about its existence will probably stop half the people that do idling. And then once we actually start writing tickets and the word gets out and it's a hefty fine as it's envisioned, I think virtually everyone will stop this practice, and we will save hundreds of millions of tons of particulate matter here in the city of Los Angeles. Excuse me, losing my voice. Any other questions? The fine, I believe, would be in the $300 and change range. So I think one fine like that will stop 99% of the people that are idling illegally. Yes. Yes, we're introducing the motion today. Any other questions? If not, we'll stick around for a couple minutes and you can ask us individually as well. Thank you very much.